Have you ever been scrolling, you see some complex issue boiled down to, I don't know, 3 bullet points?
Or a viral video that's just full of certainty.
Exactly. And you suddenly feel like you've just cracked the code on global economics or something. You feel sharp, you're ready to jump into the comments, totally confident that anyone who disagrees is just wrong.
That little surge of instant expertise, that feeling of confidence you get from, well, very minimal input, that's so seductive.
And that feeling is at the very heart of what we're talking about today.
It's what Dunning-Kruger described more than 20 years ago.
We are talking about the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's that cognitive bias where people with low knowledge in an area, they just vastly overestimate how much they actually know.
It's the paradox of ignorance. The less you truly understand, the more complete and certain your knowledge feels.
And this phenomenon that used to be a psychological curiosity has now jumped into the political arena.
And it's become a profound challenge to public discourse. So our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack how this classic bias hits modern politics, how digital media makes it all worse, and what the research says is the only real path out of this mess.
And this isn't about pointing fingers at one side or the other. Our sources frame this not as a partisan problem, but as a, quote, global challenge.
And that framing is so important. We have to get that this is not a flaw in one ideology. The vulnerability here is human. All of us, I mean, every single one of us, is prone to overconfidence when we don't have a deep understanding of something.
Okay, so let's unpack that. How does this psychological quirk of thinking you're a chess master after one YouTube video, how does that become a political crisis?
Well, it becomes a crisis when that false certainty starts fueling polarization. We love to think the Dunning-Kruger effect is something that only applies to the other side, but the research is clear. It applies pretty much equally across the entire ideological spectrum. Far left, far right, it doesn't matter. If your political knowledge comes from simplified, surface-level content, you're just as likely to overestimate what you know.
So it's not what you believe, it's more about how you got there, how much complexity you've actually wrestled with.
Precisely, and we have data on this. There was a major study in 2023 in the Journal of Elections, Public Opinion and Parties that looked at exactly this.
And what were they looking at?
They examined how voters rated their own knowledge on really complex policy areas, things like, quantitative monetary policy or judicial review, stuff that isn't simple.
And what did they find about this so-called illusion of political sophistication?
They found it has absolutely skyrocketed in the digital age. People who only consumed these easy, high-level summaries consistently rated their own expertise way higher than their scores on actual factual tests. The confidence was huge, but the understanding was paper thin.
And that creates a dangerous cascade, right? If I think I get inflation because I know the buzzwords, I just stop learning.
You freeze your knowledge at the slogan level. That's the first part of the pattern they found, overestimating your own side. But the second part is what really kicks polarization into high gear.
Okay.
Because these individuals only grasp the slogans for their own side, they naturally fall back on caricature when they look at the opposition.
So they aren't debating a real policy difference. They're fighting a straw man version of what their opponents believe.
Exactly. The source material really drives this home. People get their idea of the opposition not from reading their platform, but from partisan news filters and social media feeds that are literally designed to make you feel contempt.
So if all you ever see is the most extreme, least charitable, and probably incorrect version of the other side's argument,
your brain just tags them as misinformed or malicious or maybe just irrational.
And once you see someone as irrational, instead of just having different values, the whole possibility of dialogue just evaporates.
It's gone. The debate is no longer about policy. It becomes a moral fight. It's about defining the enemy. And that is the perfect environment for the modern media ecosystem to step in and just amplify all of this globally.
Okay, let's pivot to that. The amplification mechanism.
Yeah.
This is where a personal cognitive flaw becomes really a societal design flaw. We know social media is involved, but what's the actual core driver here?
The core driver is the attention economy. Plain and simple. Algorithms, whether on news sites or social platforms, they aren't optimized for truth.
No.
Or for accuracy or complexity. They are optimized for one thing: engagement.
Which means profit.
Which means profit. And what keeps us engaged more than anything? Strong emotional reactions, certainty, outrage, anything that confirms what we already think.
So nuance is boring, but a confident, outrageous statement is sticky. It makes me want to react.
Precisely. I mean, think about the time it takes. To explain a complex piece of legislation with pros and cons, that might take 20 minutes. But a certainty bomb, a 10-second video that simplifies it all into heroes and villains, that wins the algorithm's favor every single time.
Yeah. The Cambridge University Press Review we looked at for this dive, it highlights how these digital echo chambers just systematically filter out different views.
Yes, and they're not just reinforcing beliefs, they're reinforcing certainty. If you're never challenged, your internal sense of expertise, your Dunning-Kruger score, you could say, it just goes up and up, even if the facts you have are really shallow.
Which brings us to this vicious cycle from that 2024 paper, Confronting Willful Ignorance. It really sounds like these platforms are actively exploiting our own cognitive weaknesses just to keep us on the site longer.
It is a structural exploitation. Users get rewarded with likes and shares for expressing high confidence in simple stories. And the really chilling outcome is that people become more confident in their political views while actually becoming less informed.
A confident surge fueled by informational starvation.
That's a great way to put it.
So this raises the big question. Is all this division and confusion by design? Is it malicious? Or is it just a byproduct of a system that's only trying to maximize engagement?
The source material is careful about assigning malice. It's very hard to prove intent. But we have to look at the structural outcome.
Right.
A system that's optimized purely for attention, regardless of intent, it just inherently incentivizes division. Why? Because complexity is messy. It slows you down. Certainty and conflict are clean, they're fast, and they're profitable.
So the system works better with a fragmented reactive public that's easy to sway with simple narratives.
Essentially, yes. This is the attention economy weaponizing our tendency to be overconfident.
Now that paints a pretty bleak picture. If the problem is baked into our psychology and our technology, where do you even start to look for a solution? We can't just turn off the internet.
We certainly can't. And if the problem isn't a lack of information because we're drowning in it, then the solution has to be a change in our approach. The sources kept coming back to what they call better epistemic habits.
Epistemic habits. That sounds a little academic. What does that mean for you, for me, in our daily lives?
It just means we need better habits for how we know what we know. We have to be more skeptical of our own certainty. And the core antidote to the Dunning-Kruger effect is something called intellectual humility.
Okay, let's define that. Intellectual humility, or IH. What is it?
IH is the genuine conscious admission that your own knowledge has limits. It's being willing to say, I only know the headline on this, or there's probably way more to this than I get. And crucially, it's being truly open to changing your mind if you see better evidence.
That sounds simple. But politically, that feels like the hardest thing in the world to do.
It does.
Admitting you're wrong or that you don't know something feels like you've just lost the debate.
Because the environment encourages performance over reflection. But the research is so strong on the power of IH. Studies from UC Berkeley and University College London found a really clear connection.
What did they find?
They found that individuals who score higher on intellectual humility, people who are genuinely comfortable saying, I don't know, they perform better at complex problem solving. They actually find better solutions.
Wow.
And even more relevant for our conversation, they found that these people were significantly less prone to political polarization. They were less likely to create those caricatures of their opponents.
That's profound. So intellectual humility isn't just about being nice. It's a cognitive advantage. It leads to better thinking.
It turns out that thinking you know everything actually makes you worse at solving problems. The second you admit you have gaps in your knowledge, you can start to fill them.
Okay, so for everyone listening who wants to actually practice this to escape this feedback loop, what are the practical steps from the research we can start today?
The first step is something we can call source shock. You have to actively seek out primary sources. Go directly to the opposing viewpoint.
Bypass the filter?
Bypass the filter. Don't read a summary of the other side's policy from your favorite news source. Go read the actual bill, or the direct quote from the leader, unfiltered. You have to understand what they actually believe, not what your echo chamber says they believe.
That takes effort, but it kills the caricature instantly. What's step 2?
The second step is active self-skepticism. When you feel that strong emotional certainty about a belief, ask yourself, what specific evidence would it take for me to change my mind on this? Mm-hmm. If the honest answer is nothing, then you're not operating from knowledge anymore. You're operating from dogma. You're in the Dunning-Kruger zone.
That's a great diagnostic tool. Mm-hmm. And the third step?
The third is about shifting your focus. Value dialogue over performance. Try to genuinely understand why the other person holds their view, their experience, their values, instead of just trying to win the debate with a rehearsed talking point.
If we connect all this back, the crisis of polarization isn't really a knowledge gap that we can fix by just throwing more facts at people.
No, it's a wisdom gap. It's the inability to recognize the limits of our own certainty.
So we've covered the Dunning-Kruger bias, how it works across the board, and how these profit-driven media systems exploit it to create division.
And we've identified the only real countermeasure: intellectual humility, that quiet confidence that comes from admitting you only know part of the story.
In a world that's just saturated with noise and certainty, where everyone is rewarded for performing expertise, maybe the quiet courage to just say, I don't know yet, I need to look closer, is the most radical act of all.
Think about that. The most powerful political act you could take this week might be to go find a thoughtful primary source that genuinely challenges one of your deepest certainties, and to read it with the real intent of letting it change your mind. Now that is a truly deep dive.